Let's say very good morning to the Reverend Chris Wickland, the Vexed Vicar. Nice to meet you. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Now, it says here that you are from the Living Word Church Network in Hampshire.
That's right.
And you're known as the Vexed Vicar.
Yeah.
What are you vexed about?
I'm generally, I basically started a YouTube channel and I'm just doing a lot of political commentary into what's going on in the nation right now, but bringing in a Christian perspective to it.
Okay.
Which is probably in the realms of the world that we're living in now deemed politically incorrect.
Yes.
But nevertheless, I feel as a Christian I have to say and speak what the Bible says into what's going on in our nation now, which I think is, I'm sure you'll agree, we're in a bit of a state.
We certainly are.
Of a 2 and 8.
We have been for a while. I mean, I always have a slightly wry smile on my face when people say, well, we are a Christian country after all. And you kind of go, well, yeah, but are we really?
Yeah, that's right. And it's things that we keep seeing. So, for example, this week I mentioned about the king that's saying now he wants to be the king of the multi-faith.
Yes.
And this is just another erosion of that Christian heritage. I liken today's culture as being sat on a branch with a saw and just sawing off the branch and supporting them. So people don't realise that the more that you erode Christianity, the more you throw it in the bin of we don't do that God thing anymore, you create a political and a spiritual power vacuum. And I think then part of that spiritual vacuum is that we're having other cultures and another religion that's slowly but surely becoming more prominent and masculine in this country and how it's dealing.
Well, it's Islam, isn't it? I mean, some people are frightened of saying it.
All right, Islam, there you go.
You know, let's just say it because, I'm not seeing, the advance of Hinduism or the advance of Buddhism or the advance of, any kind of Chinese ancient, religious practices. What I am seeing is that we're being told, we don't do that God thing anymore, but they do, and you better leave them alone.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of what it feels like, isn't it?
And when you see a king who seems to be kowtowing to that religion as well, we got no Easter address. Now, I appreciate typically we don't normally get an Easter address, but surely the king would know
why not?
that exactly. It's like it's the most important day on the Christian calendar. Christmas is the second most important, but actually Easter is the most important day. So you think surely he would say something, but he didn't. He did a talk about Eid and various things like that. So again, it's Islam, and one of the things that concerns me is, we have the 3 key elements here in London, which are really important to Britain and its future, is that you have the Church of England, which ordains the monarchy.
Yeah.
Well, the Church of England have basically just turned, forgive me for saying a woke joke now. You've got the monarch who now wants to seem to be more interested in being the king of the multi-faith. And then Parliament serves at the pleasure of the king. And now we have a current government, which again seems to be quite anti-Christian, tiptoe totalitarianist, and again moving towards promotion of Islam with the Islamophobia laws and things. So all of this stuff, it just paints this picture that we are undermining our heritage, 1400 years, and it is that heritage that makes Britain what it is. I mean, Christianity has influenced our politics, it's influenced our culture, it's shaped laws, art, music, all of these things have been shaped through Christianity, a lot more than people realise. Things like hospitals, all of these things have come from welfare, all of these things come through Christianity, or certainly inspired by them. But now we're living in days where people just don't appreciate the freedoms that Christianity has given them, all the culture, they're throwing it in the bin. And I think where we're potentially heading for is a black hole of goodness knows where, and it doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't. Because, you can have a separation of church and state, as we supposedly do, in the same way that they have in America.
But that's the thing, we don't.
Yeah. Well, we kind of do, don't we? I mean, you were talking about the way that the government runs. I mean, the government does not run to me as though it's in any way affected by the church, it would seem to me. So the state, if you like, in that sense, runs on its own, doesn't it? Yeah,
so in America, they didn't want church and state. They wanted separation so that there wouldn't be one singular state church that the politicians, so to speak, would have to endorse. Right. Whereas here in Britain, we do have a state church, which is the Church of England. And this is what concerns me, is we have a state church which is also, again, denying its own heritage.
Yeah.
I was on BBC Radio 4 last year, and I had one of their vicars.
Bad luck.
I was on the Moral Maze, and he was having a real go at me, saying, "You're a Christian nationalist." And I was like, "Excuse me, but you're working for the Church of England. It says it in the name.
Right.
Your king is the head of the Church of England. So if there's anyone here guilty of Christian nationalism, it's you." But they don't seem to want to care for their own heritage and history. They're not following biblical orthodoxy. They're throwing that out the door, and instead instead following cultural Marxist ideologies rather than actually the teachings of Christ.
How does the Church of England scenario work then with Britain? Because obviously the king is the king of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. You know, he's not in charge of the Church of Scotland.
No.
I don't know what happens in Wales, really. Not many people do.
No.
Northern Ireland, they don't like to talk about religion apart from all the time.
Yeah.
But so how does that work? I mean, in terms of, because the state religion is England, it doesn't apply to the other other parts of the country.
Yeah, that's complicated. It's to do with our history. So during the Reformation, Scotland, I believe if I'm right in this, Scotland wanted no monarch to rule over them. So you have the Church of Scotland, but it's independent from the monarchy. So the Church of England is very unique and specific in that the church, and again it goes right back to when King Henry VIII wanted to break away from the Catholic Church. So it's a complicated history, but essentially this is constitutionally what we have in our nation, which is we have a head of state who is the king, and the Church of England comes under that governance, but then so does Parliament. And we need those three things together. But at the moment we're seeing a complete erosion of it, even now on the parliamentary side with Andy Burnham saying, hey, let's move number 10 up north.
Yeah.
And it's like we are dismantling everything that's made this country what it is. Now, I'm not on some kind of let's go back to the good old days. I have a sense of realism about me. But at the same time, if we just keep on consistently undermining the foundations of this nation, I fear for my children and I fear for my grandchildren what kind of world and what kind of Britain they're going to live in.
Yeah. And what do you think's behind the King's recent kind of, I mean, it's not that recent, I suppose, but he's been kind of drawing himself closer to the Islamic faith, if you like. I mean, we had a clip earlier in the week, I think it was from 1993, where he made a speech about, you know, the beauty of Islam and how wonderful it was. And, you know, of course, there's nothing wrong with him saying those things. There's nothing wrong with him admiring, you know, perhaps the scholars of the past and some of the civilizations that kind of created it, I suppose. But it just seems as though, I mean, I know this is probably not true, but a lot of people say to me, you know, has he actually converted to Islam? Has he actually become a convert? Because he speaks about it so much.
That's right, and that's whether that's true or not, it's certainly a perception. And when you've got a king that is putting out more content about Islam than he is about the Christian faith, and the Protestant Christian faith, which he is the defender of, then I think we do have a problem. I mean, you've worked in the news all your life. You know, how things appear is really important.
Yeah.
And he appears to be one that seems to be favouring Islam over the religion of his fathers and his mother, which to me, I think it is shocking. I mean, we're at this time now where, you know, I remember the words of Oliver Cromwell, or at least it was in a film I watched, and he said the king is not above the law. Yeah. And the king can't just change constitutional law just because he feels like it. No. Now, there are some people saying, no, he hasn't changed constitutional law. But this is the problem I get with progressive liberalism. It's like, just shift a little bit, then push a little bit more, push a little bit more, and then where we're going to is really what we want to get to. And then those things in the past have gone. And this is what concerns me, this little shifting of the king's, job description will eventually, 10 years down the line, it will have changed. And it was like, how did we even get here?
Right.
And it's because of these little comments that he's coming out with. So I personally think that we, as a Christian, and as a member of the Confessing Anglican Church, Bishop Kai is my bishop, that we have to toe the line on this, and we have to put a line in the sand and say, no, enough's enough. We can't let this one go.
Yeah, well, Bishop Kai's on today because he does a little Sunday sermon for us on a Friday. Interesting about Easter, what you said, because Easter, it seems to me, is a very good opportunity to talk about all sorts of things, because, you can get into the whole idea of resurrection, of rebirth, of the Lazarus and the tomb and all of that stuff, and it sort of lends itself to storytelling. And I think probably always at some point over the course of that weekend, Easter weekend, I'll use the word resurrection about something, and yet all I remember seeing around Easter time was all these sort of iftars, which was a word I didn't even know until relatively recently. Keir Starmer had one in Westminster Hall, where we had that very strange exchange with the Palestinian ambassador, who sort of hugged him and held on to him for a bit longer than he should have done. And then there was the Sadiq Khan episode in Trafalgar Square, where a whole load of Muslim men were praying and the women were sort of somewhere behind them. And everyone, as you say, from the liberal left was saying, well, what's wrong with that? Well, it doesn't look right, is what's wrong with it. It doesn't look like London to me. Sorry.
No, you're right. And not only did it not look right, it's actually banned and outlawed in other Islamic countries. They won't let them do that.
No,
because it's seen as a sign of intimidation.
Yeah.
So
also, I'm told that in actual what you might call pure Islam, you're supposed to pray in a mosque.
Yeah, you're not allowed to pray outside.
To pray in public is considered to be kind of vain and really not the thing to do at all.
Yeah, it's also a form of claiming territory. It's a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
If they pray in open places and in certain buildings that aren't mosques, it's a form of territory taking. So it's like, we're praying here because we want this territory.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing. And again, it's quite an aggressive act.
Yeah.
Most people here in the West, they don't really get it. They're just like, they're just having a prayer time. It doesn't mean anything. But in their culture, they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Muslims have spoken about this, saying what they're doing is claiming territory. It starts spiritually.
Well, the other one I noticed was, and this is they use actually the same sort of decorations as they use for Christmas, but during Ramadan, the Strand in London, which is a fairly major thoroughfare, which happens to have the Savoy Hotel in it, and it's next to Covent Garden, they have Ramadan lights.
Yeah,
I don't remember anyone asking for whether we wanted those. I don't remember Sadiq Khan asking anyone in London if that was all right.
No.
You know, they just put them up, and you're supposed to go, oh, that's nice. Well, I don't think it is, actually.
No, that's right. I mean, dare I say it, and listen, right, I'm not trying to sound, because this could sound racist, and I'm not actually racist, and it's shame that we're living in a culture where to even talk honestly, you are deemed that.
Yeah.
But I mean, where I had to stay overnight here in London, and with the temperature and everything, I'm not being funny, but it literally felt like I was in Islamabad.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but it's...
Well, there was a joke going around last week where people were saying, the thing about being in Britain nowadays is it's just been like going on holiday because it's really, really hot and nobody speaks any English.
Yeah, that's right.
And it does feel, London does feel a bit like that. I mean, you can walk around London for an entire day and it's not a race thing because there's plenty of people here from Europe, plenty of people here from Eastern Europe or from, South America or whatever. It's nothing to do with the colour of people's skin, but you could walk around London and not hear anybody speaking English all day.
That's right. So I don't have a problem with multi-ethnicity. But what I am seeing in certain areas throughout Britain, a kind of ghettoising, and it seems to be an Islamic ghettoising. Now, I get that people would want to hang together and do their own culture. The Brits, when they go off to Spain, they create their own little mini British culture, which I'm not sure they should do that. But we're seeing it, and we're seeing it sprawl. And in light of that, with everything else that's going on in our nation right now, I think we need to be very careful.
Well, there's also not millions of people from Britain going to live in Spain.
No,
I mean,
that's right,
when I was growing up in London in the 60s and 70s, we always had immigration. There was always places that you could go and find little, sort of cohorts of different countries. I mean, there was a little Portugal, there was a little Spain.
Yeah.
There was, areas where you could go. Brick Lane, there's a very Jewish community. Golders Green, where not far from where I grew up. That was all absolutely fine, but it's I think it's the numbers that concern people now. In the same way that when I lived in New York for 10 years, everybody was from somewhere else. That was kind of what New York was, but everybody wanted to be American.
Yeah.
Whereas that's not what we have here.
No, that's right. Well, there's another side to this coin as well. So I've got a friend who's a missionary, and he works in Africa, and he said to me that Britain, or the West's multicultural experiment, is actually robbing the other cultures. He said, so over here in Britain, we've got lots of young people that have come from Africa, for example, that are looking after our elderly. He said, but out there, their elderly are dying alone because the young have left.
Yes.
And this is another side to the multicultural experiment, we're always going on, it's good for our NHS, but actually it's destroying other countries with the sheer amount of skills that are coming out of that nation and coming to us. So it's not just affecting us.
There are two arguments about the NHS argument, right?
Yeah,
One, that the NHS is crap, right? Now, if you're telling me that the reason it's crap is because we've got a lot of people from foreign countries working in it, I wouldn't disagree.
Yeah.
Equally, if we took them all out and somehow the NHS would collapse, well, it's not far off collapsing, to be honest.
No.
Again, it's this left-wing kind of ideology where they make these arguments without actually thinking what they're saying.
Yeah.
Why are you selling me the NHS as a great institution? It isn't. It doesn't work.
No, that's right.
They get £200 billion a year, and you can't get an appointment to see a doctor.
No.
And if you do get an appointment to see a doctor, there's a pretty good likelihood if you have to get any treatment in a hospital, it will get cancelled.
Yeah, I can't figure out what happened. After COVID, suddenly you couldn't see a doctor anymore.
No.
I just don't understand what happened.
Well, I always use my, the people that have listened and watched me for a long time probably get bored hearing the same stories, but this is one of my favourites, is when during COVID people used to send in, I was one of the few people broadcasting from the studio in News UK, and people would send me pictures, and I got one from someone who'd been to their local doctor's surgery, and the sign on the door said, "Please do not enter if you are ill." Right? And you just kind of go, that was peak irony to me, that the NHS ceased to be a service that treated people, and they really kind of showed themselves up to be an organisation that would rather you didn't bother them. Yeah. And it was like, please don't come in here because we're too busy being safe and caring for people. And it's like, well, who are you caring for? If so many people used to tell me when they'd go into hospitals, they were empty. There was nobody in there. You go into a GP surgery, nobody in there, because they didn't want to see patients. And you're kind of going, what's that all about?
Yeah, it's terrible.
And in a funny sort of way, to your point about religion, it's become a kind of left-wing religion, the whole NHS thing. Don't criticise them, give them more money, don't worry about them going on strike because, they're really good people. Well, actually, if you go on strike and you're harming people, that's not good, as far as I'm concerned.
But we see this within, even like a lot of churches, the Church of England. Again, they think that this left-wing, politicised form of Christianity is the gospel, but it's not. It's a far cry from what Jesus did. Jesus spoke to those in authority. He flipped tables occasionally. Drove money changers out with whips if people were doing stuff that was completely wrong and against Scripture. And I get lots of Christians saying, Jesus would be at the borders with open arms, welcoming everybody in because you've got to be kind to the stranger. And that's true. We do need to be kind to strangers. That's what Scripture teaches. But what Scripture also teaches is that if anyone comes into your nation, they must observe, follow your customs and your ordinances so that they blend into your culture and your society. They don't bring in their own values and their own cultures. And also another thing is that the Bible has a lot to say on mass migration, which is considered a curse of God to a nation because that means that people are being assimilated and they're losing their identity and their culture. But again, a lot of Christians don't want to talk about that. They just cherry pick the scriptures that they like to follow this left-wing narrative. Yeah,
I know. Interesting. Well, fascinating stuff. So where can people sort of see your YouTube channel? What is it? What's it called?
So it's Chris Wickland. That's it. That's the name of the channel. Or if you just type in Vexed Vicar.
Vexed Vicar, okay.
Yeah, or on X at Rev Wickland.
Right. How are you with anchovies? What's your view on anchovies?
Anchovies, I can tolerate them.
Can you?
Yeah.
There's a shortage coming apparently.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh no.
The Peruvians have instructed
I better get on my knees and
stop
pray.
fishing for them, but there we are. We've got a bit of a fishy theme. But great to meet you. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
And we must talk again.
Yeah.
Reverend Chris Wickland, and as I said, Bishop Kai Dewar coming up a little bit later on with the Sunday sermon.